referring to is crypto.
What is crypto?
Crypto is just a technology. It's a lot of things to many people. It's just a database that's better than databases in the past. So right now, your database may be in your spreadsheet, and let's say you and I have a bet. You write it down there, and we get a third person to say, yeah, that was the bet they had, and this is what's happened. Okay. That is how databases, that's banks, that's pretty much everything we do in society is in this ledger system, it's called.
I've got a suitcase here, which is maybe a good way to kind of explain this. This is a bank. And inside the bank, which is, I guess, the middleman, you got money.
Yeah.
So could you explain it to me through the context of this, we'll call it the central bank, how the system currently works as it relates to transactions, the public ledger, etc.
So, okay, in the old world, we both had our gold.
Yeah.
And we'd stick it in our safe or bury it in the ground. That gold was your gold. This was my gold, and I might try and fight you for it. That's what pirates did. Okay. And then we invent banks. Mm-hmm. And banks, we put it in there, and they give you a note to say, Stephen, you've got one of those coins. Raoul, you got one of those coins.
Okay, so we've both got a note now saying that.
Yeah. And now we trust this bank to give us our coins when we want them, because they're our coins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense. Safe as a bank, as people would say. The issue is in this world of smoke and mirrors, what's known as fractional reserve banking, they have taken those coins and given them to somebody else.
They've given my coins to someone else?
Yeah, they've lent it for money. So now that coin is not in there. But they've been given the money. So usually when you're just, if everybody pulls all the money out, there's not enough money. It's called a bank run. We've seen those recently, but that's a classic thing. So it's not your money because you don't actually own your money. The moment you put it in the bank, what you've become is in fact a debtor to the bank, or a creditor to the bank. So you've lent them money and you get some legal redress that if you've got less than 100,000 euros, pounds, whatever the currency is, generally that's protected by the government, that if the bank goes bust, then you get your money back. But anything beyond that, you don't get anything.
But I've got a piece of paper.
Yeah, means shit. You don't own anything. Now, it's so big as a problem that so that was 2012 European crisis, exactly this. People didn't own their money. That person walked off with it, asked the bank for it, the bank didn't have it, nobody's got any money, where it's all gone. That's the same Ponzi scheme we talked about when you buy a house and use the cash flow to buy another house, right? If somebody takes away what's known as the collateral, suddenly it's all gone. But the issue was actually bigger because 2008 proved another thing, is that nobody owns anything. So the whole system itself is leveraged. So, for example, back in that time, the average US government bond, which is the safest thing in the world, was leveraged up to 30 times.
What does that mean?
That means 30 people thought that that was theirs.
Oh, so I say that this is the bank in front of us, the suitcase, and it had one coin in it. When we put that one coin in, it created 30 more coins and gave out 30 pieces of paper.
Yeah.
So there was actually only one coin in the bank.
Yeah.
But they made 30 pieces of paper.
And that's all well and good if the collateral, the thing that it's secured on,
the coin,
maintains value.
Okay.
Or isn't pulled by one person. If you were the lender and you're original lender and you get it out and something happens, then all of these 29 other people are like, I want my coin back. And they're like, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. So we just created the coin.
Correct.
We just gave you a piece of paper, but there was no coin backing it.
Yeah. And the issue is, so that's one issue with the banking. The other issue is pretty much everything we do is created on this It's called a ledger system. A ledger was invented in the Renaissance in the 1500s, 1400s, where what would happen is you have this on a accounts or balance sheet, you'd have these dual entry ledgers. And what it's basically saying is, I agree with you, and often we'd have a third party agreeing it.
Okay.
Issue is that's known as the Byzantine generals problem. It's actually a philosophical, mathematical problem that has been unsolvable until Bitcoin came along. And what it is we are generals in a war. You are way away from me. We can't communicate with each other, but I need to send somebody to tell you something. There is no way of making sure that that person tells you exactly what I've told them, and no way of you approving it. And that's what a three-party system does. I may go to a notary, but how do you know I haven't bribed the notary to lie? I see that all the time. We see it with accounting firms and audits. We see this in everything. There's always one of these trusted parties that is not trusted. The bank, classical trusted counterparty that suddenly may not be trusted. We saw it with Silicon Valley Bank recently in the US. So what blockchain did really cleverly was said, okay, well, the way of solving this is to get thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people to confirm it.
Okay, so let's throw away the bank. Take my paper back because that's worth 0. If you pick up this chain here on the floor, this is our hypothetical blockchain.
Yeah.
Now, explain to me the difference between the bank we just saw and this blockchain.
So this blockchain, this, let's say, is a Bitcoin. This slot on the blockchain is confirmed by every other part of the blockchain, which is all the computers that solve this mathematical problem. We don't need to worry about that. But what it is tens of thousands of people reporting on all of the activity. So if I transfer this ownership to you, it will know that you are the owner. You can either hold it yourself, like the gold coin, as a bearer asset, or you can ask somebody to custody it for you, but still your name.
So if I want to send you a Bitcoin, how are tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people confirming that transaction is legitimate without a middleman checking?
So they're essentially taking a snapshot of the blockchain, and they all have to agree.
And they're not
it's called a consensus mechanism.
They're not actually at their computer saying, yes, I agree.
Well, the computers agree.
Okay, so the computers are checking.
Yeah, or the blockchain itself will say, well, that doesn't agree with all the others, and it gets rejected, and that whole block will get rejected until resolved. Like, there's a problem here. And that's called consensus. So what you're doing is a multi-party consensus that this is truth. So now what you've created is what a friend of mine calls the security truth machine. So at first, we all know it for Bitcoin. I can own a Bitcoin. It's proven that I own the Bitcoin. I don't need anybody to tell me that I own the Bitcoin because it's publicly acknowledgeable and verifiable on the blockchain. It's immutable, which means can't be broken. Okay. But this is where it gets really interesting, is we've suddenly found that after the invention of the smart contract, so right now, let's say we're 2000 and...
There's a contract in here.
Yes.
It says, I've sent 1 Bitcoin to Raoul.
Okay. So this is the world pre-Ethereum.
Okay.
The world post-Ethereum would say, I'm going to send Raoul 1 Bitcoin if the sun shines 13 days in a row in London and something else happens, whatever it is. And it'll automatically settle, verified, on the chain.
Because there's 10,000 computers.
And there's code in that to make the settlement.
Okay.
Okay. So, all well and good. Nobody really knows what that means yet. What it means is that everything we do as humans is actually contracts. Me turning up here today, a contract. Literally everything we do is a contract. Every ticket you buy, every purchase you make, everything is a contract. It's how society functions.
Money's a contract, isn't it?
Money's a contract. Government's a contract. Religion's a contract. Everything is a contract. It's how we create a social construct. and social order. Now, what we can start doing is using this very powerful chain and putting other stuff on it. The first random thing that came on it was actually art, because it's valuable, called NFTs, non-fungible tokens. They're single pieces of art that were stored there, and we can have ownership. But that's really experimentation. Really, your Taylor Swift concert tickets can be on chain. Why would you do that? Because now this has solved another big thing that didn't exist. We talked about before, in a digital world, everything goes to zero in value. So Raoul, what's the point of this? This is just like cloud storage, just goes to zero in cost. No, because what we've created is digital scarcity. You can only create a certain amount. We can make that one asset be that one asset. Mm. And so therefore, it can't be replicated at all. So now in this digital world where every day is more digital than the next, we've created scarcity. And scarcity is what gives value. It's what humans assign value to.
And that means that
scarcity of knowledge means that knowledge was valuable. Lawyers, because not that many people come out of law school. That then now with AI, not valuable.
So to make sure I and everyone listening understands what the blockchain is, it's this public, can think of it as this database in the sky. And the database in the sky is checked by everybody who has their computer on and is interacting with the database in the sky. So you no longer need a government or a bank checking the transactions and the contracts in the database in the sky, because now all of our computers that are on interacting with it are in the background checking that if I send you 1 Bitcoin, if I do something on this database in the sky, it is in accordance with the history of the database, and it is in line with that database.
Yeah. And to make it less complicated, it just makes it a source of truth.
Okay.
In a world where we don't even know who is who online, who owes each other what, any of these things, we now have a source of truth that everybody can agree on.
And everyone can see.
And everybody can see.
And you don't need to trust anybody.
And so that as a technology solves many things, problems that we don't even know we've got because they're so part of how we exist. So the technology is not about money. The technology is about truth and exchanging value and creating value in a digital age. Now, what is interesting and powerful about this technology is we've seen technologies similar before. The internet. We've seen broadband. We've seen these big global infrastructure things. Most of those, the internet was a public service good. Broadband was all built private sector. We didn't get to make money out of these things, really. Amazon made the money, or whoever it was building the broadband. They all went bust as well. What we've got here is this very clever thing that everybody in this blockchain gets rewarded for the role that they play.
In maintaining the blockchain.
In maintaining the blockchain. And because these things are scarce, and let's say Bitcoin being the most classic example, there's only 21 million that will ever exist. You've created this scarce asset that is a reward system. So the people who mine the Bitcoin, they use the electricity to solve the algorithm to get the Bitcoins to make sure there's only 21 million. Well, they get rewarded. The people who verify the chain get rewarded. And then we can buy the asset, which is actually us investing in the future use cases of this thing. Are people going to use it for storing wealth or building stuff? So now you get this global infrastructure layer of which people can invest. Now, let's go back to the example of AI. AI, 99% of people listening to this will not be able to invest in it, apart from buying some of those big